How many years are you gonna sit feeding the rot of inadequacy? Enduring the chasm between who you are now and who you want to be? When do we stop mourning?
I deserve to be able to do things that I enjoy. Like reading or drawing.
The best time to plant a tree and own a house was 25 years ago. And the next best time to de-rot and make a reading goal is now. Welcome to the D-Spot. Time to undo my lobotomy. 2024 felt like how Oppenheimer felt. Perilous to stop the bomb of my life from falling apart yet. I also made the bomb. At the start of 2024, my channel was in good spirits. I was also drinking spirits at the BAFTAs. Got invited to my first ever Netflix premiere. It's only taken 10 years. But you would have seen if you'd followed me on Instagram. This was a shout for you to follow me on Instagram because fascism and skinny jeans aren't the only things coming back. I'm also coming back. I was ready to take on the year. And then I said goodbye to my grandmother's spirit. And then I spiraled. All the meanwhile, I was reading a bunch of Colleen Hoover. It's everything that altered my brain chemistry in 2024. So I started off the year with my first ever Colleen Hoover book that I've read since I last read the student teacher pedo one. Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. More than just lessons on forgiveness and redemption, Reminders of Him is really a study about perspective. The perspective being her dead ex. Main character is called Kenna. She drunk drives, crashes the car. She's in shock, so she walks away and leaves the fiancé bleeding for 6 hours. He dies. She's jailed. She's pregnant. She gives birth. Baby's taken. She comes back years later like,
Hey. How y'all doing?
she falls for her dead fiancé's best friend, who's raising her kid, but he doesn't know that she's the ex. What does life look like? From one driving accident whiplash to another, Verity. What are the mysteries surrounding a comatose bestseller's husband who hires a struggling author Lowen to finish off his injured wife's novel? This book took method writing research to new extremes, and Lowen, the main character, is very hungry for some wood. Goes to sea, putting the para in parasocial relationship. I then read Without Merit. Honestly, the character in this makes it onto my top 10. Top 10 worst characters of all time. November 9. I think this was trying to do like a one-day thing where the main characters meet on a specific date each year, except the main romantic interest in this is a bit more like Joe Goldberg and You Should Probably Call the Police. But I think we're meant to find him hot. Ugly Love. This was the book that had the line, "We both laugh at our son's big balls." I read all of that for a video looking at her best and worst rated books, and people were not happy with that video, saying I was being mean, which, to be fair, okay, maybe I was being overly sarcastic without due process, but in defense, Your Honor, I simultaneously cannot be held responsible for the actions of her character. I think so far Colleen Hoover feels to me how buying pre-decorated charms from AliExpress feels, right? If each charm was a heavy topic, you would think that its accumulation would be meaningful. Yet paradoxically, it feels decorative. To me, it doesn't feel confronted in any meaningful way. The way I personally interact with these books is when I'm reading it, I don't wonder about the richness of life, the joys of life, or even its sorrows. To me, it just feels a little bit hollow. After 7 Colleen Hoover books in a row, I was trauma bonded with myself, and I needed something fresh. And then I read Bad Behavior. This is basically the B-movie gone sexual. I also made a video on it last year as well. This was also the only physical book I read. Imagine a world where plastic surgery is running rampant. People are very insecure about how they look, where people with social status are people who are more conventionally attractive, and also those in top are also killing the planet. Oh, I'm not talking about Hollywood. This is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. This was a 5th reread for me. As a 14-year-old whose only form of oppression was like, I have to wear the school uniform and raise my hand to go to the toilet, I used to eat up totalitarian, authoritarian, dystopian novels. That was like my shit. The next book's title reminds me of an experience that I had in uni where I was meeting my flatmates for the first time. We were talking about music that we liked, and this white guy said, "Oh, I bet your favorite song is Yellow by Coldplay." Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is a satirical take on racial dynamics in the publishing industry. A white author basically pretends to be ambiguously Chinese, and she does this by stealing her dead friend, and that friend is putting it very loosely, her dead friend's manuscript about Chinese laborers, and she passes this book off as her own. She's basically comically racist with like an All Lives Matter vibe. This is the sole book that I read for enjoyment and not for a video, and even then it was for a book club. And you know, as a socially anxious shorty whose eloquent speech abilities are in like beta mode, I like the idea of going to a book club. But when I was at said book club and it came to my turn and they're like, "Divya, so what did you think about Yellowface?" I was like, what Cindy said. My reading pattern for the last decade has followed a Netflix business strategy where I start a bunch of books, I just never finish them. So goodbye Bella Swan sitting at the window, and hello Elizabeth Bennet, multitasking queen, reading and walking and strolling through the fields at the same time. She said, "I'm touching grass and I'm anti-doom scroll." Books I want to read this year. This is my anti-brain rot reading list. We're starting off strong with The Highway Code. This one's actually from 2015, so it might be a little bit outdated. Where's my over 25 non-drivers at? My main motivation to read this is the fact that driving lessons used to be £22 an hour, and now they're like over 35. At the time, I thought it was expensive, but now I have even less money. Really wish I had learned to drive when I was 18. I don't know what I was doing when I was 18. I was probably trying to figure out if I'm bi or not. I don't know. Rich dad, poor dad. My dad always encouraged me to read, and on his quest to invest in his retirement fund, he said, "Yeah, read this." And the librarian said, "You can't take this out. You are 8. But single-handedly, librarian lady, you are the reason that we are not rich." What? What do you mean the guy who wrote the book is $1.2 billion in debt? Design after capitalism. What does it look like when we design things that are not just for serving profit? So this book answers the question, what does socially responsible design look like, and what would that look like in a post-capitalist world? I'm 2 chapters in and already this book has clowned on Elon Musk, so I know it's going to be a good one. On design, feminism, and friendships. My 3 interests. Similar reasons as the previous book. I really want to know how she views the intersection between design and activism. Against landlords, how to solve the housing crisis. I hate landlords. When they said, "Oh, you're going to be doing community building," I didn't know that meant basically helping to pay for like loads of people's mortgages for like the rest of my life. A book that big tech doesn't want you to read so bad that they're actually banned from marketing it. But we're not banned from reading it. It's been compared to a real-life White Lotus and a Devil Wears Prada-esque expose about the place where she used to work. A lot of people say that the company feels like a cult. I used to work at one as well. But is your author the former director of Meta? Sarah Wynne Williams' expose calls out harassment, toxicity, potential interference in elections. To me, this is like fork found in kitchen moment. They didn't overtly deny the allegations. They were like, that's, you know, that's not us anymore, bro. That's the old me, you know, like.
Your Honor, this is propaganda, okay? Your Honor, this is propaganda.
I feel like you can't really talk about undoing brain rot without being more conscious as a person and facing and understanding the world as it is. Not only about the self, but about as a community of people, how all of our struggle is connected. So we're in our decolonizing our minds era. Orientalism by Edward Said. When you think of the Middle East via American imperialist movies like Iron Man, they paint a very specific image in your head. I was really interested in this book because the crux of it is about the idea of, you know, Western's civilized rationality versus, you know, the whole idea of Eastern medieval barbarity was constructed and permeated. Orientalism by Edward Said discusses exactly that. The 100 Years' War on Palestine. It's about settler colonial history, it's about occupation, it's about nearly 100 years of structural violence. With over 2 million people facing the risk of famine and food insecurity, one person of those affected, and one story that really hit me, was Tala's. She's 22 and she was in the middle of her studies. Her mom was outside of Gaza at the time when the assault began. Her uni's been bombed and she's currently struggling day to day. Tala dreams of rebuilding her life, reuniting with her mother, and finishing her education. I just remember being 22 and in uni, when you're supposed to be dreaming and building for your future, not watching it being taken away. We're all on this journey together on this earth, and I really want to use the power of this community for good. So any donation of any amount or even amplification of the fundraiser can help. Or if you prefer, you can also donate directly to the PCRF. Women, Race and Class by Angela Davis. So Angela Davis is a revolutionary civil rights activist, and this one is classed as an essential read for people who are interested in unwhitewashed feminism. She basically speaks on how true liberation comes from considering the factors of intersectionality. Male dominance, white supremacy, class struggles. I've read the majority of it, so I'm very nearly there. Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. This is recommended to me by one of my close friends. This one's also classed as essential reading for those interested in intersectional feminism. The Trinity of Fundamental. The fact that this book was written and even came out is insane to me. The lore is incredible. Firstly, it was written during the author's 9 years of imprisonment in an Israeli prison. Not only did the author also not expect it to be smuggled out, but the way they were smuggling it in bread, in little capsules, and like thrown across cells. It's a fictionalized account of the author, who is a retired lecturer, his experience in prison. Why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. Britain really likes to wear a "I don't see race" goggle, and it's so rarely talked about that the loudest voices are often racist. This is about structural racism, microaggressions, and feminism. This book was actually recommended to me by a white guy. My Creativity Has Rigor Mortis. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. My neurons have been on creative strike for the past few years. Every idea that I have gets met back with oh, thanks for your submission, but we decided to go with another candidate, and the candidate is another idea, but it never sticks around long enough to literally do anything. So this book has been described as literally the holy book for the creative process, and people have said that it transformed their lives. And whilst I don't necessarily expect a complete transformation myself, I hope that it at least helps me rebuke the devil of my resistance. I really hope this is a way of nurturing that little artist in me who I neglected since age 11, and I hope it brings her back. Half-Ass Human by The Norms. I met Lena like a year or two ago, and she's so vibes. Also her videos are vibes as well. When you have two demons inside you, the overachiever, but you also can't be bothered. How to tailor your life to suit you even when you don't feel like it. And I feel like this subverts the traditional self-help genre, which I'm really excited to see how it goes down. Books for depression. If you've ever felt deeply or emotionally tired, this book is for you. Also a book that feels like a Studio Ghibli movie. Hopefully it's not Grave of the Fireflies. A Palm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. A book about a robot and a monk, but it's really a book about what is purpose, what is meaning. A story about community, existence, and the healing nature of nature. Frequently Happy by David Larby. I'm Depressed. The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. I'm Depressed. The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. Ocean Vuong is one of those writers that feels like how Master Uguay speaks, but with more generational trauma. I've read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and he writes about the human experience in such a vulnerable yet refined way, and every time I was reading that book I could like hear finger snapping going on every page. I can really tell, okay, this is a poet. It's about a 19-year-old and he's about to jump off a bridge, but before he does so he hears the voice of an elderly woman with dementia telling him, no, don't do it. And from then on, he becomes her caretaker. So I've heard that this is about human connection, being on the fringes of society. Lord is back. This book's in my basket. It's really gonna be melancholy girl spring. I'm in my classics era. White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I need to know what the hype is about. Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. I'm trying to be like this image. The pursuit of meaning without religion. What makes life worth living? Camus is often associated with absurdism. And instead of just being a shorty bi academic with indigestion, I want to be a philosopher as well. I don't want to just be closer to the ground. I also want to be closer to truth. The Metamorphosis by Kafka. Motivation for reading this is a deep desire for my ego to be seen, to be spotted in London and thought of as, who is that mysterious girl with the immaculate vibes and that crossbody bag inspired by Japanese origami bags? And what is she reading? I also really want to understand this meme. Death in Midsummer by Yukio Mishima, because I might as well make use of the books that I get sent for PR. This is how you lose the time war. I was heavily convinced to read this book just because of this one tweet. Read this. Do not look up anything about it. Just read it. It's only like 200 pages. You can download it on Audible and it's only like 4 hours. Do it right now. I'm very extremely serious. It's only 4 hours. I've tried to read this 10 times. I just keep zoning out. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Does reading only 1 page count? 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo. So this book was recommended to me by a friend, and I think reading books recommended by friends is such a touching way of showing affection, and it's kind of one of the only ways of affection that I am able to show. It's about desire, power, misogyny in the sex lives of 3 women. Normal People by Sally Rooney. So I wasn't gonna read this book until I found out that Sally Rooney is based. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. The only white woman that I trust. I was 14 when I adopted the Hunger Games as my personality trait. I'm now 26. Suzanne Collins, help me feel something. This one follows Hey Mitch, but real ones remember this video. The 50th Hunger Games winner, Katniss's mentor. It's a tale about the rise and the continuation of fascism, division, class, struggle, poverty, propaganda, politics, and I'm just like, it's never felt so timely. One chapter left to finish, and I was really curious about what can Suzanne say that she hasn't already said in her other books. This will probably be one of my next videos, so stay tuned. Books I don't necessarily want to read, but I'll do it for videos. A few years ago, an urge came in me to expel my body of all of its sadness, and in order to do this I thought, let me just read the most depressing books known to mankind, because I thought for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. My thought process was that I would be so insanely sad that I am happy. And I posted about it, and then a comment said, don't do this, because they also know another booktuber who did the exact same thing, and then they were like, it did not go well for them. But I personally think I'm built different. I was thinking maybe I just read a bunch of great books and it will penultimately end with this one. There's a video calling this euthanasia fanfictions. Of course I've got to read this one. Or I thought maybe I'll do it increasingly sad, or I'll just read a bunch of the great books, but I don't know which course to go. As this is a democracy, I will count your likes and your comments, which is not a ruse for you to help me and the algorithm out. The other idea I had with the Colleen Hoover negativity, I was like, there has to be something that I like. So what if I just continue to read Colleen Hoover until I find a book that I actually enjoy? Let me just read her whole bibliography. Also in honor of her retiring. Divya, why are you doing this? I don't know. There's no pope, so maybe it's demonic possession or something. Is there a demand for like creative smart slash like the Kylie and Kendall book? Or I don't know. I need your help. Anyway, the anti-brain rot year has started. This is my pledge. As leader, you can put your faith in me. I will not let you down. Pledge your allegiance to the anti-brain rot alliance. And also tell me, what are you reading? What are you not reading? What should I read? What should I do with my life?